It's my pleasure to welcome you to Northern Kentucky History Hour. I'm your host for tonight, Mary Jane Calderon, joining you from my office at Behringer-Crawford Museum. Also joining me to my left is our presenter for this evening, Captain Don Sanders. And we have Heather Cook joining us from her dorm in Worcester, Ohio. So thank you both for being here. Northern Kentucky History Hour is a project of Behringer-Crawford Museum, Northern Kentucky's history museum, that would not be possible without support. Thank you to all of our sponsors, including the City of Covington, Kenton County Fiscal Court, ArtsWave, Kentucky Arts Council, Northern Kentucky Sports Hall of Fame, the Carol Ann and Ralph V. Hale Jr. Foundation, and our members. If you're not yet a member of the museum, please consider joining for access to discounts and exclusive programming. Learn more and join at bcmuseum.org. We would love to hear from our viewers tonight, so if you have a question or comment to share, please type it in the chat or the Q&A feature, and we'll be sure to get to those at the end of the presentation. So let's meet tonight's presenter. Captain Don Sanders is a retired riverboat captain with the Delta Queen Steamboat Company and Rising Star Casino. He learned to fly an airplane before he learned to drive a machine and became a captain in the U.S. Air Force. He is an adventurer, a historian, and a storyteller. He is also a columnist for the Northern Kentucky Tribune and has written over 235 articles, some of which are included in his book, The River Rat to Steamboatman, Riding Magic River Spell to 65-Year Adventure. Now, before we get started, there is a quiz question tonight. The first respondent to enter a correct answer in the chat on Zoom or Facebook Live will win a Northern Kentucky History Hour prize, and most importantly, bragging rights. So tonight's question is, the Island Queen wasn't originally supposed to be the Island Queen. The boat was commissioned in the early 1920s as one of a pair of deluxe river steamers operating out of Cincinnati, Ohio. What were the intended names of these two boats? So go ahead and please leave those answers in the chat. And so, Don, if you're ready, we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to move this right over here for you, sir.
Okay.
And then I will pull up your presentation in just 1 second.
Thank you very much. So glad to be here tonight at the historic Behringer-Crawford Museum. I'm Captain Don Sanders, one of a fast dwindling lot of old-time steamboat characters. I've been a river rat for nearly 72 years. On the river rat is usually considered a term of endearment, though it can have other connotations, especially when used by those outside of our fluvial fraternity. I'm a local fellow who played on the grassy slopes in the deep woods at DeVue Park before my family and I discovered the joy of the rivers bordering two sides of our city, Covington, Kentucky. My association with river activity, however, extends beyond 72 years. The river was a scary, frightening environment when I was very young. Whenever my parents, Jess and Anna Margaret Sanders, and I rode on the Coney Island steamer, the second Island Queen, we always sat on those hard wooden benches on the roof behind the pilot house. Why did we always sit on those hard wooden benches behind the pilot house of the Island Queen? Where strange old men were rustling about inside. The darkness was terrorizing, but when that dreadful whistle blasted, I was petrified. 1952 started abysmally. My beloved grandpa, Jesse Sr., died in February. Soon after, my boyhood home in Latonia was sold, and we moved closer to downtown Covington, which would eventually place me near to the river. In the interim, my separation from the river was complete into the spring of that year. Dad now commanded the traffic division of the city's police department. Before Interstate 75 mauled the west end of downtown Cincinnati and encapsulated the softball meadows of Willow Run, on the Covington side of the river in cement, north and southbound traffic from Detroit, Michigan to Jellicoe, Tennessee, and beyond flowed on U.S. Route 25. On Friday evenings, the road jammed with bumper-to-bumper cars, carrying Detroit automobile workers back to their ancestral Appalachian homes in rural Kentucky and Tennessee, crossed the river on a bridge that shared the same piers with the railroad and was simply called the C&O Bridge. Friday was also payday for the police department. So every Friday night, Mother, my brothers Dick and Bob, and I would pile into our machine and join Dad, where we found him busy at work on the southern end of the bridge with the men under his charge. The police had a small segment set aside for them in the parking lot at the Bridge Cafe and liquor store, across from the ramp of the bridge. Dad and his traffic troopers spent so much time around the Bridge Cafe that it soon became their favorite after-work place to stop for a beer or two. The employees at the Bridge Cafe were delighted to have officers of Covington's finest frequenting their establishment. Great sums of money changed hands over the counter, and the cashing of payroll checks attracted varying levels of the social ladder, much of it from lower rungs. The liquor store manager, a dried-up little old man named Walter, was destined to inspire me and send me on a course I have traveled for the rest of my life. His name was Walter, but generally everyone called him Walt Hoffman. Walt was born on a shanty boat on the Licking River 50 or more years before he and my father became pals. Walt and his wee wife, Lorraine, owned a 52-foot wooden houseboat called the Palomine. One early summer day in 1952, just a few months after Grandpa died, Walter and Lorraine invited the young cops who directed the traffic in front of the liquor store and their wives for an evening cruise on the Pal. Again, the old fears returned when my mother and father were late returning to grandmother's house, where my brothers, Dick, Bob, and I stayed while they cruised on the Ohio. Tears streamed down from my eyes as I stood on the bottom rail of the white picket fence surrounding the front yard of the bungalow on 38th Street as I prayed for their safe return. 2 weeks later, Mom and Dad were invited to ride the Palomine again, but we boys were also invited this time. Whatever happened that day changed my life forever, and I'm still riding that magical river spill over 70 years later. That magical river spill I just mentioned began not so far from here in Campbell County, along the southern shores of the beautiful Ohio River. The Palomine appeared nothing like today's mass-produced molded fiberglass lookalikes. The Pal was hand-built with the keel up, board by board of natural wood. The hull had white oak frames with Douglas fir planking, the next most durable wood after cypress. Overall, the boat measured 52 feet from the overhanging forward deck, beyond the stem to the last plank of the enclosed back deck. A raised bow, stern section, and the lower center component of the cabin gave the Pal somewhat the look of a floating castle, or at least it seemed to a boy 10 years of age on first seeing it afloat. The Palomine was at home at the Newport Yacht Club, on the Kentucky side of the Ohio River, upstream and opposite the Cincinnati Public Landing. During the era when Newport's sole reputation was years yet from Reformation, the yacht club had its own notoriety. Once, when reading the boat's name set in bright red neon letters displayed on the outside of the huge wooden harbor boat as we drove across the central bridge, my father warned, "Don't let anyone know you know where that place is." But despite Dad's warning, I felt immediately comfortable and at home the first time I walked across a swaying gangway and stepped aboard the harbor boat, where musty smells of stale beer, hemp rope, open bilges, and long since fried greasy steaks greeted me. The harbor was owned and ruled over with an iron sway by a determined woman named Helen, who was as interesting a character as any nautical setting has ever produced. She was aided by her brother Dewey. As I found over the years, Helen and Dewey were true and genuine river people, not generally understood by the public ashore, but held in notable regard within the river community. It wasn't long before I yearned to find my niche within this odd yet exciting congregation that found comfort and contentment on the water. The Powell was berthed at the far downstream end of a long line of floats at Helen's, as the yacht club was commonly called. They preferred dock space easy to get the heavy 55-footer in and out of without bumping into one of the fancy yachts moored closer to the headboat. Still, it was a far trek from the parking lot to haul coolers full of cool drinks or overloaded picnic hampers. As soon as we assembled on the boat, Walt laid down his orders. You kids have to wear life jackets. No running on the boat. Don't throw stuff in the water, and so forth. Once the Powell single four-cylinder gasoline engine was started, lines were cast off, and the boat pushed upstream toward the golden yellow sands of Dayton Bar, or sometimes all the way up to Lock and Dam number 36 at Brent, Kentucky, opposite Coney Island. Though Walter typically handled the Powell during departures and landings, he preferred to join his guests while the boat cruised. So he handed the steering duties over to Lorraine's nephew, Swope, a fella just a few years older than I. Swope was the luckiest kid alive, and I was determined to learn everything he knew so that I would someday pilot the Palomine like him. Swope was more than happy to start teaching me the techniques of steering the boat. Throughout the next couple of summers, I got more and more wheel time as he began fading out of the picture. What I soon learned from Walter Hoffmeyer was that if I demonstrated my willingness to work and help him with the boat, he reciprocated by teaching me more about the operation and care of his vessel, as well as sharing secrets of a river upon which he was born, grew up, and was growing old. My family was invited to ride the Palomine nearly every weekend for 3 consecutive seasons. My brothers, Dick, Bob, and I were becoming seasoned river boys, something that did not escape the notice of our parents. Soon our folks began a search for a boat of our own. On the banks of the Great Miami River near Hamilton, Ohio, only 35 miles from home, where repeated visits to the Hamilton Boat Club netted the grand prize, the most lovely 38-foot paddle wheeler named the Shangri-La, which my parents brought overland by trailer to the Cincinnati Public Landing, launched, and paddled to the Covington Boat Harbor, immediately below or downstream the south pier of the Singing Rolling Suspension Bridge, where they named it for themselves, Marge and Jess, the Margess. Does life get any better? The former Shangri-La was a 38-foot wooden paddle wheel houseboat, hand-built in 1947, following plans made popular in the 1930s. A 35-horsepower, 4-cylinder, flathead gasoline engine from a Durant automobile powered the chain-driven stern wheel. The scow bow hull and the graceful cabin were wooden and painted as white as any steamboat. The red window and molding trim matched the paddle wheel. What the Shangri-La had most in its favor, that it was the loveliest of any little paddle wheeler on the river. The Margess bobbed calmly on the outside of the dock at the Covington Boat Harbor when I stepped aboard for the first time. Nothing belied Dad's earlier difficulty launching the paddle wheeler off the lowboard trailer across the river at the public landing and getting her to now where she was now tied. Moored close alongside our houseboat was a dirty hand-built shanty boat, complete with all sorts of plunder, some floating, some piled atop the roof. That was the home of the harbor master, Tex Kitching, his wife Joy, and their toddler son. Tex, a veteran riverman who once decked for the Union Barge Line, was, as I soon found, receptive to a gangly teenage boy eager to help around the harbor and willing to work for free. Before long, I spent more time with Tex than with my family aboard the Marquess. After a summer spent working and learning alongside Tex through new and exciting river adventures, my family and I arrived at the Covington Boat Harbor to find the shanty boat and all its plunder missing from the end of the fleet. Tex, his little wife, and their son Joe and their little boy had gone down the river. I never saw Tex again. Tex's replacement was another washed up old river rat called Mac. Though I helped Mac with a chore or two, he was more friendly with my father, who seemed to want to keep me separated from the sun-beaten boatman who made chairs from water willows growing along the riverbank under the Singing Bridge that he sold for extra cash. But that was fine. Not only did I spend more time aboard the Margess at the harbor, but at home, my brothers and I only recently discovered the pleasures of the forbidden waters of the Licking River as our new playground within an easy walking distance of our house. In early 1952, the family moved to a two-story brick on Starrett Avenue, 4 houses off of Wallace Avenue in uptown Covington. The same year we moved into the neighborhood, Mother began working as a licensed or as a medical secretary, a career step that would eventually find her retiring as a licensed practical nurse. But while both of our parents worked, with both of our parents working, Bob, Dick, and I became latchkey kids. We loved it. As I was nearing adolescence and had been watching my little brothers for several years, our family felt we were all in good hands with me in charge, as long as I followed their command to stay in the yard. But after a while, we started playing with kids on the other side of the street, whose backyards fell off into a broad inner city valley so vast that the Holmes High School football stadium and adjacent practice fields occupied but a part of it. The lower backyard of the Holmes on Eastern Avenue formed the eastern slope of the depression. At its lowest point, the valley was marsh and murky, with gray water standing on the ground's surface. The neighbor boys simply called the area the swamp. Immediately, the swamp became our favorite playground to escape the confines of our monotonous yard. The swamp also became the perfect battlefield. Instead of bullets and bombs, mud balls were the ammunition of choice. We warred among ourselves for a time, with me opposing my 2 younger brothers until our cousin Ray Cooper moved next door and we had equal sides. After all that warring on the property of others soon caught the attention of Mike Coors, a neighbor boy about our age who lived on the Eastern Avenue side of the hollow, whose background encompassed much of the swamp. Though Mike was the son of the Reverend Morris H. Coors, pastor of Emmanuel Baptist Church, he too had a taste for war games. On the hill behind the white frame rectory where the Coors family lived, Mike dug a deep foxhole large enough that he and his ragtag troopers had shelters from the barrage of mud balls we rained down upon them. We often heard the sound of a round striking Mike's plastic helmet liner. A charge up the hill by our gang always drove Mike and his boys inside an open basement door, where they sought shelter in an area forbidden for us to enter. Usually this meant coaxing and begging Mike to come back out and play army some more. "We won't try so hard," I promised. On a warm, sunny Saturday in early May of 1955, Mike eagerly accepted another challenge to make war in the swamp. Perhaps he seemed a little too exuberant to get the battle started. As always, the battle began with an exchange of clay missiles. Before long, the cry of "Charge!" rang out from our side as we sprinted toward the enemy foxhole. Coors' army abandoned their position as if on cue with a safe haven lying within the basement door. As we boys crested the top of the embankment and onto the flat ground behind the parsonage, an angry roar erupted from beyond the cellar door. Like a swarm of seething hornets, 3 roughneck hooligan boys Mike had recruited from around the slaughterhouse area in Hellentown, a neighborhood further north and concealed within the basement, flew at us howling and screaming with intentions beyond the genteel regulations that normally govern our rules of war. So we brothers executed the only reasonable maneuver possible. We ran. Instinctively, we knew that if we ran back into the swamp, we would, as they say, get the hell beat out of it. So out to the street I ran as Dick and Bob followed. Turning right, we flew to the earthen levee we watched being built since moving into the neighborhood. Over top, we went with our pursuers close behind. Behind the flood wall stretched an open field ending at the Licking River. Down we went to where we could only turn left or right. Going to the left led toward the Mean Boys' home territory. To the right was an unfamiliar forest of tall trees that darkened the shores of the river we were forbidden to go anywhere near. Choosing the forest, we ran toward it and found a narrow path leading through the trees and underbrush so slender animals may have trampled it out. We ran, hoping to elude our pursuers, but they doggedly hung onto our footsteps, so determined were they of their mission. After what seemed a considerable distance, we brothers were tired, but two licensed stalkers are falling further behind. At the same time, we were abreast of a rift in the earth alongside the trail. Down here, I whispered as I dropped off the trail. Together, we tightly hugged the ground alongside the small escarpment. Moments later, the heavy footfalls of our adversaries clumped by on the trail above. They were never heard from again. Following a reasonable way, we stood up and surveyed the expanse of the beautiful river below and the woods surrounding us. It was though I was convinced paradise lost had been found. We promised ourselves that we would return and explore what we had just found. After school was out for the day on Thursday, May 19th, 1955, Dick, Bob, and I, in company with our neighborhood friend, Larry Baldwin, returned to the area of the Licking River we had discovered only a few days before. This time we left the woods and walked along the broken jumble of flat sedimentary rocks along the river's edge. A natural outcropping of stone made the perfect campsite, and we built our first campfire there. On a sizable sheet of shale rock, I inscribed with a harder stone, claimed by Don Sanders, May 19th, 1955. This claim marker was placed beneath a sheltering outcrop of limestone until the river reclaimed the inscription during the next high water. Thus, my brothers and I claimed a stretch of the Licking River as our own and began a series of summers in the sun and the love for the river that continues today. May 19th became our camp day, marking the beginning of another summer on the Licking River full of swimming, riding, passing blue logs, diving out of overhanging willows, roasting potatoes in a bed of red-hot coals, and all other forbidden delights that we boys could contrive on those long-ago shores. Looking back, it seems we spent our entire youth swimming and frolicking on that ancient waterway. But our times on the Marges, besides our times on the Marges, but I left town on the excursion steamer Avalon in June of '59. So simple. Arithmetic tells me it was just 4 summer seasons, including 1959, spent frolicking in the sun. But to the young, 4 seasons can seem forever. Now, as everyone should be aware, during the summers of our youth, my brothers and I spent much of our time swimming and playing on the Licking River or at Walt Boat Club aboard our family paddle wheeler houseboat, the Marges. On one of those now distant days, our father brought home a disappointingly old, overweight, big old dog. Still, after he began running and playing with us, the dog quickly trimmed up and became our constant companion. Soon we realized how much we loved this old dog named Patrick. We just called him Patty Boy. But he turned out to be a natural river dog who loved following along with us to the Licking River. When we swam, Patty Boy watched from the shore. On especially hot days, Patty waded into the river until the cool water was around his neck. But not once did I actually see him swimming. He was the best dog we ever had. At least I've always felt that way. After the first season at our Licking River camp, we naturally became curious to find out what new wonders lay further upriver. One such day, we boys set out on a very narrow trail through the woodlands, overhung with branches, and through thickets of tall ragweed. Past the old city dump, later built to become a baseball park, the path was interrupted by a wide open area surrounding the Ashland oil terminal, where oil barges were unloaded into huge metal tanks high on the hill above. A little further up the river, another field opened that would be a cinch to traverse, we figured. Once we were halfway across, a terribly loud commotion behind us caused us to look around. Two mammoth St. Bernard dogs with stout steel chains fastened about their necks that connected to hefty concrete blocks were charging at us so swiftly that the cement blocks bounced behind the beasts like rubber toys. We ran for our lives toward the safety of the woods before us. Eventually, we sensed the dogs were slowing down. After plunging to the overgrown grove far enough away from the edge of the open field, we saw that the St. Bernards could not venture into the woods, dragging the cinder blocks behind them. We were safe. After that first encounter, enough distance was reckoned between us and the giant dogs to make a game out of outrunning them as the heavy cinder blocks bounced behind until the pair of jumbo pups were exhausted and abandoned their pursuit. After a time, the St. Bernards grew to recognize us and ceased to give chase, much to our disappointment. Going further up the river, we came to the embankment of the L&N Railroad Bridge across the Licking River on a very high bridge. On one side, closest to the outside of the bridge, a wooden walkway with a handrail provided safe passage to pedestrians. Paddy Boy, we found, was petrified to walk across the high bridge. So I picked him up and carried him across to the other side. Down another steep embankment and a short distance upriver was another bridge with no accessible way to get onto it on either side of the river. A massive, rusty iron pipe running from the bridge's deck down and alongside a cemented pier disappeared into the ground. A pool of clear water bubbled from beneath the earth and lined with a submerged pipe, carrying a drinking water supply from the reservoir at Fort Thomas across the Licking River and to the city of Covington on the west side of the bridge. The riverbank in the area around the water bridge, as it was called, was overgrown with trees and thick underbrush. Beneath the twin bridges, a whitewater rapid known as 3 Mile River roared with a rumble of thunder heard a long distance away. In the 1830s, next to the mouth of 3 Mile Creek, a dam was under construction on the river. However, the dam was never completed due to economic problems within the federal government. When John Augustus Robley was building his engineering marvel, the now famous suspension bridge, giant limestone blocks were removed from the dam and barged to the bridge site just over 3 miles north, where they were incorporated into the structure of the south pier of the bridge. Whenever the water level of the Licking River was low at the riffle, we could walk on the smooth basement stones of the foundation of the old dam, which had been left in place and not taken for the construction of the pier. Looming high above New Camp rose the solitary prominence of Johns Hill. During the Civil War, Wiggins Battery, also known as Johns Hill Battery, a Union artillery fortification, was dug into the hillock to protect the Cincinnati area from possible incursions by Confederate forces approaching north along the Licking. During our own occupation, we climbed a particularly tall tree atop the hill and sat in awe amongst the highest limbs with those towering buildings in downtown Cincinnati, some 3 miles away, were in clear view. Except for when my brothers and our cousin Ray Cooper swam through the whitewater riffle, while I, the eldest, stood lifeguard of them. New Camp was not our swimming home. Instead, it was an area where we explored the surrounding neighborhood and built fires. Rather, we swam downstream at Old Camp. But swimming there was made difficult when walking over the broken tilted slabs of limestone rock, until we realized that the muddy shore on the opposite side of the river, on the Campbell County side, had to be easier on our feet to reach swimmable depths. When we three brothers began playing on the banks of the Licking River, I was the only one who could swim. I use that word lightly. Still on hot, humid days, our curiosity first enticed us to wade knee-deep in the river, and before long, we stripped off our clothes and immersed ourselves entirely in the cool, spring-fed water. Learning to hold on to logs with one arm and paddle with the other, with practice and by trial and error, we eventually became excellent swimmers and survived into adulthood with few, if any, narrow escapes on the water. Those have been a few days on the Licking River and like the song said, we thought they'd never end, but they did. Not only did those glorious halcyon days of summer end, but nearly 6 decades have passed since we last played at camp or swam in the invigorating waters of the Licking River. Since our last immersion in that stream, 3 Mile Riffle and the basement stones of that ancient dam lie deeply submerged beneath the backwaters of Markland Dam. Johns Hill has since been ripped apart for fill material for the construction of Interstate 275. And near where we played at New Camp, an attractive park built and operated by the city of Wilder, named Frederick's Landing, is where my stern-wheeler Clyde visited on 2 autumn weekends during recent consecutive years. Happily, the last time the Clyde was at Frederick's Landing, brothers Bob and Jeff and their wives Shirley and Bessie joined my youngest son Jonathan and me aboard the paddle wheeler for a sentimental cruise on the timeless Licking River. Eventually, I began steamboating on the steamer Avalon during the 1959 and 60 seasons. Started working on the Delta Queen after graduating from Eastern Kentucky University and served as an officer in the United States Air Force for over 4 years before returning to the Delta Queen. Within 6 months, I was second in command of the Queen, serving under the legendary Captain Ernest E. Wagner, who for many years called Newport, Kentucky his home. Within another year, I shared command of the Delta Queen with Big Cap, as Captain Wagner is fondly called by those who knew him best. I was the first captain of the excursion paddle wheeler, the P.A. Denny, on the Great Kanawha River at Charleston, West by God, Virginia, and the first officer of the mighty Mississippi Queen. I piloted towboats shoving huge barges on the Mississippi River, worked salvage Captain John Beatty, decked aboard a tiny ship in raging seas with waves 30 feet high, commanded 5 casino boats, the Diamond Lady, the Emerald Lady, Players Riverboat Casino, Grand Victoria 1, and Grand Victoria 2. I've also owned 3 extraordinary boats, the John Henry, the Sunfish, and the Clyde. It's all in the book and much more. I've had a great time these past 80-some years cruising among the cosmos and aboard the planet Earth. Thanks for inviting me tonight. Any questions?
Well, thank you very much, Don. That was an excellent presentation. I'm sure we've got some questions out there. Heather, why don't we go ahead and first go back to that trivia question. Did we have a winner at the trivia?
So just to repeat that question for everyone, it was the Island Queen wasn't originally supposed to be the Island Queen. The boat was commissioned in the early 1920s as one of a pair of deluxe river steamers operating out of Cincinnati, Ohio. What was the intended names of these 2 boats? That was the Cincinnati and the Louisville. And we did have one person send in the correct answer, and that was Jay Young. So congratulations. You'll be getting your prize in the mail.
Yeah, well, you want to go ahead and let people know. I want to let people know that we have copies of the book, The River, here in the gift shop available for purchase. And how else can they?
Can you get a close up on that?
we can hold it up here, but we can also type this. It's blurring it out. We can type this in the chat though. So KYCPSJ stands for Kentucky Center for Public Service Journalism. Is that where you can?
Yeah, just type that in and into the here, and magically,
So
go to that site.
you got that, Heather, in the chat? KYCPSJ. You can also find it here at the Behringer-Crawford Museum in our gift shop. All the Roebling books, the bookstores, St. Elizabeth Healthcare gift shops, and then the Kentucky Tribune, the November,
Northern Kentucky Tribune.
or Northern Kentucky Tribune.
Just get in touch with that.
Yeah, that was kycpsj.com.
I want to thank my editor, Miss Judy Claves, for seeing me right on Facebook, and she says, "Why don't you come write for us?" And I wrote 235 columns for her paper. And then my wife had 2 major strokes, and then I had my own health issues. But she's been posting my stories every summer.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to check some of them out, and you're definitely a storyteller. You're definitely, I can picture when you tell stories, I can picture it in my head. And I love your slides as well. But did you say there's more?
Yeah, there's one more. There's how many minutes?
Oh, you're good. You're good. We're at 7:13.
We took the Marquess up to Andy Fisher's boat club in Bellevue, Kentucky. Andy Fisher was one of the great characters of the river during those 50s. And he had some great facilities, incline railroad, and tracks out. And we took the boat out after the first year. My dad was working night shift, so he couldn't help in the day. And my mother and I worked on the boat, doing about that, helping on the bottom, that old gooey tar. And I had a nice little collection of silver dollars. And every day I would take another dollar out of my collection, and we'd buy a loaf of bread and a half pound or something of meat, some cheese, and some mayonnaise we didn't have, and a drink of peas, and just Mom and I. And we got to spend some real good mother-son. And my mom was really the one in my family that was the most influential with me, probably going on the river. She loved it. One time, Dad kind of hedged about coming down. He was working, and my mother said to him, "Jess, supper's being served on the Marquess tonight. If you want to eat supper, you got to come down to the boat." And he was there. He was great at it. And there we are. And she had a little hot plate over there, and I was taking a picture. There's my brother Bob. He's retired attorney here in town. And here's my other brother Dick. He lives overseas, married a lady from overseas. My father. I still had the mirror, and I had the 2 lights in my room. And that was the most wonderful, well laid out little boat. And I have friends today are just crazy about it. I sure don't have the money to rebuild it, but I have a good buddy that owns the marina in Cincinnati, and I'm always trying to get him to go ahead. And he's got the wherewithal, he's got the tools, he's got the space. And it would just really be great to see that little boat or one like it floating again. I just couldn't. And they're different, they're not these plastic lookalikes. They're really fine. Here's my mom. Everybody likes that picture of her. She was really gorgeous. Everybody.
I was going to say she's a very beautiful lady.
Yeah, she was. And Dad was very handsome. They look like movie stars. In fact, they look better than movie stars.
Oh, wow.
People say it all the time. I know it's true. And so we had these couches, one here and one here. And then they'd fold up this chain right there. And we'd have a bed for 4. Of course, when my brother Bob was real little, he just slept with my mom, I guess. And the steering was down here.
Mm-hmm.
The engine was in the back, and they had a little paddle. And the dog found his favorite spot in the back here on by the paddle wheel that we weren't all allowed to go back there. I could go back there, you know, I had a business backyard. And my brother, of course, we all wore life jackets. And dog would go back there because nobody would bother him. Here's my dad. That's a dog spot. Patty boy. That was his favorite spot right there. And that's one of Texas, Kitching's wooden yawls. I spent a lot of time in that boat with Tex. And when Dad, you saw when he had the boat up in a high angle over at the Cincinnati Public Landing, that it caused a damage to the chain sprocket. And it never was quite right. And it was, you know, it's just too bad. But we kids and all still love the boat. We didn't care. Mm-hmm. We still took a few cruises. Dad was real cautious. You know, he liked the river, but he's real cautious. You know, I guess like fathers could be. Mm-hmm. And now here's Captain Ernest E. Wagner and Captain Clark Campbell Hawley, and that megaphone you got was probably Doc's. Wagner, he didn't need that. Wagner get up, he didn't. He could get up there on the bridge without any help, and he always opened up his salute or greeting to the crew with, "Can you hear me?" And of course, and the crew loved him, you know, and everybody cheering, "Yeah, we hear you, Cap." Everybody just loved Wagner. He came from Eastern Tennessee, and he was trying to get to up there where they made all the tires up in Ohio.
Youngstown.
Huh?
Youngstown.
Yeah, somewhere up in there. And his brother told him to get on a train and come on. So he got on a train and fell asleep in the train. When he woke up, he was down up on Water Street at the top of the levee there onto Cincinnati Public Landing. And so he crawled out of that boxcar and saw those big steamboats there. My goodness. Or he had seen them at night. And there wasn't a light. He said there wasn't a light out on that boat, all the little decorative lights. So he went down to, next morning, he went down to see about getting a job. Of course, he was 6'6", 250, 275. He's just a mountain of a man and a natural leader. He was a top sergeant in the Army during the Second World War. He fought at Peleliu, one of the worst places the Army fought in the Pacific. And he walked on, he came across a wharf boat, came across a steamboat, and he's on another steamboat, and he didn't know what he said. And he asked the mate, say, "Are you hired?" He says, you ever worked on a boat before? No, he said, never did. He looked up at him, and he had a job already cut out for him. He was had a job as making dance floor watchman, which we needed a pretty hefty fella to take care of all the wild people drinking. That's where everybody went in those days. My mom and dad's first date was on the Island Queen. Anyway, he got started, and he stayed. The only interruption he had was the Second World War, and he came right back. And he was on the second Island Queen, which he blew up and burned in Pittsburgh. He was a hero. He had left his wallet in on the nightstand, and he was just, I got it in the book. Mm-hmm. And he went back for his money, came back out and tripped over what he called a band boy. That's a person in the band, High Trask Orchestra. And he reached down, grabbed him, picked him up. By that time, flames were just everywhere. He was getting burned, grabbed his band boy, leaped over the side in the Monongahela River. And by that time, there were rescue boats, all the people coming, and Wagner was taken to the hospital. A picture of him in the book, the river, with all bandages all over. One of the greatest natural leaders that I was ever around. Everybody never knew anyone that just didn't respect and love the man. But he was tough to get on the wrong side. He was tough. Captain Doc Hawley was one of the greatest. He just died over a year ago. He was a total legend on the river. He started working cap, I guess when he was 15 or so like that. And there's a saying on the boat that to be made on a steamboat, you got to be the biggest guy on the boat, or you got to have everybody believing. He had everybody believing, and he was. And he never backed down from anybody. And I learned so much from him, both of them. And just legendary people. Doc lived here in Cincinnati for a while. I lived up Mount Adams. He's vice president of Green Line Steamers. That's my good friend, Captain John Emery Edgerton, born in 1870. When I started on the boat in 1959, he was 89 years old, and he had been steamboating all those years. You know, he was quite a bit older than me. And the captain had to watch him. He had to be careful, Captain Edgerton. He had to, what he watched him for is he had to make sure the cap stood out and stayed out on the cruise as long as he should, because what he would do, he would slip in early. And the reason he did that, then he'd go down on the dance floor and ask all those pretty girls to dance with him. But he was a wonderful man. He always asked me to host his letters, and I took so much pride in it. I walk up to the post office like this, just couldn't believe he had that old time handwriting of those days. It just absolutely beautiful. What a great man. And one of his nieces is a friend of mine on Facebook. She lives in Pittsburgh. Her dad was a captain, so was her grandpa. Here's Captain Arthur J. Schlecker and Captain Wes Dawes. They called him Young Wes. That was Young Wes. And this was on the steamer Avalon, 1961. And they were at Pittsburgh, getting ready to go down on a Girl Scout ride all the way to New Orleans. And it's through Captain Schlecker that I got a job on the Avalon in 1959. I rode with him so many times. My dad and Captain Schlecker, were very close. And he had his grandson as an attorney here in Northern Kentucky. But he never knew his, of course, grandpa, but I did. I spent a lot of time with his grandfather. That's Captain Tommy Dunn. He was from Old Hickory, Alabama, no, Tennessee. And it's Captain Wagner in the pilot house in Avalon. I think this was 1961. He was a fine pilot, a real Southern gentleman. He had a heart attack later on at Delta Queen, and Captain Wagner was coming out of his room to go to the bathroom, and he noticed that there was a brown liquid coming down the steps of the pilot house. And Captain knew that somebody had kicked over the cuspidor. People don't know what that is. That's the spit tube. So he went up to see if everything was all right. Found Captain Tommy Dunn on the floor, on the deck. And they was able to get him to the hospital. He still died. And that's the Avalon alongside the steamer Sprague down in Mississippi, up on the creek, up on the river, Vicksburg. Members of Delta Queen crew in 70, Captain Wagner, different people. Captain Tucker, Mr. Tucker, his father, Mrs. Alice Tucker. Oh, God.
We're getting close to running out of time, but I don't want to cut you off. I know we do have some questions. I don't know if you want.
Ed Smith, I'd like to get Ed Smith.
Yeah, go
in the
for it.
Hall of Fame. Inland Rivers Hall of Fame. He deserves it for many reasons. Not only is he married, but he also represents a lot of people that aren't represented in the National Rivers Hall of Fame. He's a wonderful man. From St. Louis, born in Arkansas. And he saved the Delta Queen, I don't know how many times. He's a fine gentleman. Captain Hanson, Harry Hamilton, he started on the Sprague. That's me with the high officials.
This is you right here?
That's me.
This right here?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're a handsome fellow as well.
Time.
From those wonderful good looking parents you had.
It's a terrible way.
Okay, did you have another slide or is this the last one?
I am, and that's many big ones there.
Look at that.
She's an engineer, Calvin, got me, got Wagner, my license.
Now, are these pictures in the book?
So,
Some of them, yeah.
I was taken by Rand Carpenter, who's a noted photographer from Cincinnati Post.
I do know that somebody asked, I want to go ahead and ask, they asked about your hat. And I'm going to bring it up because this guy, I thought his hat's pretty cool. Could you explain your hat or what that means?
This one?
Somebody wanted to know about your hat. Yeah.
This was a gift from a ship pilot buddy of mine, Ted Davidson from New Orleans. Everybody knows that Ted's quite a legend. We always bragging on each other. And Ted saved many lives. And in his conduct that day aboard the merchant vessel Brightfield is studied by young cadets at the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy and other merchant marine academies. And Ted gave me this many years ago when it's new. I about wore it out, but I got it when I told him that I only like to wear my old hat. And some of the guys from the Pilots Association sent me a new one with a little, feathers I could put on here. And I just haven't gotten around to fix it. Plus a certificate make me an honorary member of the New Orleans Baton Rouge Pilot Association called NOBRA, N-O-B-R-A. But that was stolen out of the pilot house of the Emerald Lady in Biloxi, Mississippi. I came up to pilot house after lunch break and somebody had just ripped it all apart. It was quite a loss. And this was my favorite, my dream shanty boat. It was down on the riverbank by the old incinerator. I wonder how many people watching know where the old incinerator was, foot of Main Street on the other side. Later became, what's his name, fancy restaurant there. But now I love that. That was my dream shanty boat. And I still think that's my buddy. Oh, can you go back? Mm-hmm. That's my buddy John Hartford. One at St. John on my mind, and him and I were quite close. Named my youngest son for him. There's John and I at Charleston, West Virginia. This picture's in this museum somewhere.
Just so everybody knows, we've got our curator of collections just off camera here.
And Clyde and Elizabeth Lee up at Frederick's Landing. That's it.
All right, Heather, do we have time to get one or two questions?
Yeah, we've just got one question out, and it's, what are some of the river travel transitions you experienced that were positive or negative?
What was that, please?
What are some of the river travel transitions you experienced that were positive or negative?
Well, it depends how you look at it. Had some things weren't quite so. It wasn't all exuberance and exhilaration. A lot of it was just learning, and what the real goal of all of it was is to try to learn as much as I could from my mentors, so that I would become equipped to run the boat when that time came when my mentor was no longer there. So we had a little buzz, and we had a little beach. It's not all fun, but if you really love it, you make it fun. It's just what you make it.
We've got a lot of really great feedback as well. I wanted to let you know that they love this. It's nice to hear what it was like back in the day on the river. A lot of people enjoying the presentation, so I want to let you know. So thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate that so much.
Yes. We're just about, well, we are out of time. So we do have some promotions to wrap up. So if Heather, you want to go ahead and share the screen, but thank you so much. So We have opened Race to Fame, Hometown Kentucky Derby Legends. So saddle up and head to Behringer-Crawford Museum to learn about the remarkable Northern Kentuckians that have played a part in the sport of horse racing. We will have an opening reception on Saturday, April 27th from 2 to 4. The event is free and open to the public, so I encourage you to come check out the exhibit. Guests will have the opportunity to meet with Derby historian and author Dr. James Claypool. He'll have autographed books available for purchase as well. Our Barbie exhibit is also on display with dolls, accessories, and memorabilia spanning 65 years. Be sure to take a picture in our life-size pink obsessed Barbie box selfie station while you're here. Heather, you want to go ahead and change that slide? Yeah. Okay. Next one. Also, get your Barbie raffle tickets for your chance to win. Go ahead and change it, Heather. To win either a 1999 Spring Collection Spring in Tokyo Barbie or a 1998 Avon exclusive Winter Splendor Barbie. Tickets are just $5 a piece and they're available at the front desk. The next Chippy Sensational Kids Club is going to be on Thursday, May 23rd, which is World Turtle Day. Preschoolers and their caregivers are invited to celebrate with us while learning how to protect these amazing reptiles habitats with stream-based fun. Register by calling the museum or emailing Kim at education@bcmuseum.org. There are still a few spots available for BCM Summer Camp Under the Sea Adventure Camp. It's for kids entering 2nd grade through 5th grade. Campers get to explore the wonders of the oceans, the beaches, the animals that live there. If you're a non-member, the fee includes a free family membership that's good for a year from the date purchase. So it's a really great deal. Learn more by calling the museum or emailing Kim again at education@bcmuseum.org. Music at BCM is just around the corner. We are excited to kick the summer concert series off this year with BCM favorites, the Turkeys, on Thursday, June 6th. So stay tuned for the complete concert schedule coming soon. Our next Northern Kentucky History Hour is going to be on April 30th with Marty Shadler presenting Pride in the Skies, Northern Kentuckians in the Kentucky Aviation Hall of Fame. So please be sure to tune in for that. For more Northern Kentucky history throughout the week, check out our Facebook page and our YouTube channel where you can find the latest Curators Chat along with all of our past Northern Kentucky History Hour presentations. Please like and subscribe. That's all that we have time for this evening. Thank you again to all the sponsors and supporters of BCM. Until next time, take care, everyone. Good night. Heather, you want to change that slide? Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great night. We'll see you next time. And thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.